Welcome to In the Loop. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of In the Loop. You revamped your website experience, but you need to make sure people discover it. So now we're talking SEO, which is search engine optimization. SEO helps to drive more viewers to your website. And in this episode, Blake Smith, media strategist at the Smithy Group, and Brian Cockrum, CTO and partner at Punchmark, are telling you what you need to get there. This episode is brought to you by Punchmark, the jewelry industry's leading website provider. Join the community of nearly 500 other jewelry stores in choosing Punchmark's easy-to-run and e-commerce-enabled website platform by visiting punchmark.com for your free trial demo. And this episode is brought to you by the Smithy Group, a digital growth agency that helps leaders and businesses dream bigger and achieve multi-generational integrity. Through insights and intelligence, digital marketing and advertising solutions, they help businesses expand their business and grow their revenue. The Smithy Group has helped hundreds of businesses surpass their goal and believe that whatever your business, whatever your story, they will make it matter to your audience. So welcome back, everybody. We are here for another episode of In the Loop, and I'm joined by Blake Smith, media strategist at the Smithy Group. How you doing, Blake?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And I'm joined by Brian Cockrum, CTO and partner at Punchmark. How you doing, Brian?
Doing well. Happy to be here with you guys.
Great. That's awesome. So really quick before we get into the content, this episode is brought to you by ClearSale and Sezzle. So everybody, don't go away. We're going to be back in just 30 seconds with this quick advertisement. Having a native integration with Punchmark, ClearSale prevents fraudulent chargebacks without interfering with the online shopping experience, therefore helping merchants to protect their revenue and improve their bottom line. ClearSale reviews incoming orders and provides straightforward decisions. Accept or reject each order with no minimum sales requirement. Trusted by over 3,000 customers worldwide and touting a 99% retention rate, ClearSale has three major goals. Number one, prevent payment fraud and chargebacks. Number two, increase revenues by converting incorrectly declined transactions into approved transactions. And number three, compensate for losses related to fraudulent chargebacks. As a result, clients can sell more safely, even in dynamic or challenging international markets. More information at offer.clear.sale/loop. That's LOUPE. Join other Punchmark clients and protect your revenues from fraud and false declines today. Thanks. Back to the show. So we're back. Welcome, everybody. I'm really excited to talk about SEO. I think SEO is one of those common topics that, you guys can steer me right on this. It feels like it's only been in the last probably 5-6 years that people have just been paying attention to SEO. Maybe, Blake, would you mind just kind of setting us up for what actually is SEO?
Yeah, absolutely. So just as a high-level overview, SEO, especially the acronym, stands for Search Engine Optimization. And basically, it's the way we go about increasing the quantity and quality of people coming to our website. So it's basically all the stuff we do on the front end and the back end of our website to increase more customers visiting the site and also achieve higher rankings in search results.
That's fascinating. And so is it just, I feel like SEO is very linked in with Google. So is it, search engine. So I guess Google is kind of what we think of when we think of a search engine. Is it just Google? Is it everywhere? How does that work out?
Yeah, no. So it's interesting. I've got some statistics here. So Google accounts for over 90% of online searches. So it's not just Google, it's other ones like Bing and other search engines, of course. But Google does account for the vast majority of the people searching. And then behind that, YouTube is second, which Google owns. And then behind that is Amazon. So if you think about searches overall, Google does retain the vast majority of people that are searching. And then I don't think a lot of people think of YouTube and Amazon as search engines, but a lot of times if people don't go to Google first, they're just typing in a question straight to YouTube, how to do this, where to go. And same thing with searching for products as well. They're just going straight to Amazon and searching. But you're right, Google does count for the vast majority of them.
Do you find that, I guess Brian can probably talk about this as well. Do you think the best practices that we're doing and what we're going to be talking about for the next 30 minutes, is that going to relate to just Google or just companies owned by Google, or is it something that it's going to impact across the entire web?
Yeah, great question. I think a lot of the concepts are the same. So when you start to talk about content, when you talk about keywords, positioning, even getting into locations, what are the services, awareness of where you are. All these things tie into all the different search engines. You know, you think about even Yelp being a search engine. And like Blake said, there's so many services out there that you don't even consider search engines that actually are search engines.
Yeah.
And so, yes, this content I think is somewhat pervasive and matters no matter where you're trying to place yourself.
So now that we've kind of set up what SEO really is, search engine optimization, let's get into like the actual things that factor into what your ranking is and like what actually is going to kind of go into how your site is performing when it comes to SEO. Blake, can you set us up with like, what are some of the important factors that go into your SEO ranking?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to kick things off as well, as far as Google's concerned, we got to understand that they're constantly making updates, right? They're constantly going through changes. It says in 2018, there was over 3,200 algorithm changes just in that year alone. That's crazy, right? A lot of algorithms always going to be updating and optimizing, but usually they're around 300 to 500. And a lot of those changes are really minute and minuscule. They don't have a lot of factoring into it, but there are some major changes that we really need to take into account. If you take even a simple thing like voice search, right? Like 4 to 5 years ago, voice search like was what our grandparents searched for, right? Like you just get on, call somebody in your family. But now it seems like that voice search has become more prevalent in today, and almost everybody uses voice search. But when it comes to the main factors, Brian can talk about this as well, but relevance on your page, right? So that's your keywords, your metadata, anything. And we'll talk a little bit about off-page and on-page SEO later. But just finding those easy ways that are best practices throughout, no matter what algorithm updates there are, finding those, like I said, meta descriptions, any type of metadata, the content, keywords, just doing those small things to make sure your site is best optimized.
Nice. So do you find that, so keywords, I feel like this is something I hear Katie, who's our digital marketing manager, talk about all the time. Which keywords are you trying to rank for? So if you guys had a guess, just off the cuff, what's like a realistic amount of keywords that you should be trying to rank for? Is there like a number, like is it 6 or is it like 50?
I think the more keywords you go after, the more you spread yourself thin, and you're talking about more content to maintain on your website. However, there are probably a base of 10 or so that work for the retail jeweler. So things like engagement rings, bridal jewelry, wedding bands, repairs, custom jewelry, watches, if you carry watches or you're big into watches, certain brand keywords. So if you're a Forever Mark dealer, a Takori dealer, or someone doing large national advertising and you want to capitalize on the fact that that advertising is going to drive intent and drive queries and people searching for those names, and you want to sprinkle your content with those names, you could potentially, rise above for those names. And so it really depends on how many different things you carry and also how diverse you want to make yourself. You can focus really intently on just a few keywords. So if you're just the bridal person or you're just a diamond person in your town, you can go wild with that and set yourself apart. But you probably also want to spend some time, if you do custom jewelry, having a custom jewelry landing page and capturing that. So I would say anywhere between 6 to 10 as a base. And then that can go up to 25, 30. I'm not sure if Blake has any input on that as well. On what he's saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree with everything you said. I think as a site whole, you can have almost like a keyword campaign that encompasses all the keywords that your site's really trying to rank for. But then if you are an overarching jewelry store that sells different things, so you have a bridal landing page, you have a services page, you have all these different landing pages, you can really get more granular in the types of keywords you're really trying to rank for. So let's just say use the bridal landing page, for example. That's where you can get more specific in your keywords and really target like 4 to 6, like Brian was saying. But as a site whole, you can really spread yourself really thin and get more optimized and target more keywords. But per page, the less is more. I would say, like he said, around 4 to 6.
Absolutely.
How does so Brian had mentioned when we were planning for this, Geo Modifiers. So you were talking about I think that has to do with tacking on like your area or your location. Is that in addition to the words you're trying to rank, or is that kind of a part of the terms you're trying to rank for?
Yes, definitely. So it's a little bit of both. You want to look at it as sort of keywords themselves and see where you can fit them in, but they are really modifiers and they are really extensions of the keywords that you really want people looking for. If you're in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and you're just going after the term Albuquerque, New Mexico, your audience is going to be a little bit broad. So if you stick to them as modifiers for the keywords that you want to rank for, so let's say you wanted to do engagement rings, I think it was from the early 2000s that Google started to incorporate these Geo Modifiers. And so they knew that they had way too much content to show if you search for any one particular keyword. However, if you are in Albuquerque, New Mexico or Boston, Massachusetts, and you do a search for engagement rings, perhaps Google should show you content or show you landing pages from the area around you. And so that was one way to just, for them to protect themselves from not having to show too much content, just to break up the content, segment it, and show it to you based on what they thought was the most relevant. And in doing so, the only way they know that a page should rank for a particular keyword or modifier is just that the fact that the content is on the page. And so having the keywords, so having a engagement landing page, and then having those modifiers in there. So let's say you do want to target the Boston, Massachusetts market, you would sprinkle Boston, Massachusetts or Boston into your content. So it'd be like, and that sounds weird, right? Because it's the product landing page for engagement rings. But if you say things like, we've been serving the Boston community for 52 years, and here's why people in Boston, Massachusetts should shop with us to get an engagement ring. Here are some of the great stories of engagement ring purchases that we've had here in Boston. And so you just continue that. And typically with landing pages, you don't want to dump them directly into product anyway. You want to start by warming them up. And so that's where you start the story, and that's where you start to talk about the community. And those are the little key plugs that you can place your Geo Modifiers inside.
Nice. I always think when you start to include, your location or these terms like engagement or jewelry or fine jewelry or whatever the terms are that you want to rank for, do you find that, I don't even know how to phrase it. Is there like a way that you can go too far? Like you are too good at ranking for it and you just say these terms all the time and then Google like gets onto you and is like, nah, that doesn't work with me? Or is it just throwing as many times as you can the word jewelry?
So historically, I'm not sure when it was, probably right before the year 2000 or right around 2000, early 2000s, 2001, 2002, Google realized that there was a practice taking place called keyword stuffing. And so people were taking pages and littering them with the keyword. So literally just repeating it multiple times in one sentence and then in multiple sentences. When Google started to catch on, it was kind of funny. People started to take those same keywords and masquerade them behind the page. And so they would put, let's say that the page had a white background. They would take white text and litter the entire background. And I mean, really keyword stuffing, like perfect example of the word. And so Google has been catching on to that. And so Google scores the quality of your content based on how human it reads, and whether it looks like it's just spammy keyword stuffing as compared to something a little bit more narrative or something more informational.
Yeah. So Blake, you mentioned on-page versus off-page SEO. Is this kind of related to what you were discussing?
Yeah, a little bit. So when we talk about off-page SEO, we're talking about anything that you're not doing yourself on your page. So that's getting the main factor of off-page SEO is backlinking. So that's talking about getting your site linked on other sites. So that's about finding your niche within your industry, really finding other stores or other blogs that are representing what you represent and maybe writing a blog post for them. That's commenting on their pages. That's doing really getting your site noticed within other people's within the industry and having them link back and forth, because what Google does, it really gauges the popularity. So this was one of the biggest updates, right? So like he was talking about, when people started doing keyword stuffing, a lot of black hat SEO, they started ranking popularity over your keywords. So Google, it's called domain authority, which is a kind of an off metric, but it's really how popular your site is, how many links are getting to it, because Google's going to trust other people's sites more than they're going to trust your own. So if they see you have 100 people linking to your blog post, they're going to know that blog post is really worthy to be ranked higher. So that's off-page SEO. And then when we talk about on-page SEO, we're talking about anything that you do on your site that's going to help you be optimized. So that's anything from the type of content, the keywords, the metadata, writing your meta descriptions, title tags, alt text. All those little factors are factors in on-page SEO.
Man, there's so many things.
If I may, the reason why so many of our retailers had success with the NOT and the fact that they were listed on the NOT or even the BBB in some cases, Google also takes that domain authority and they put into question the size and rank of the site that's linking to you. And so you get what we jokingly call in the industry, and Michael probably laugh at this because we say it often, we call it link juice. And link juice trickles between and among sites. And so if you are being linked to from a site that has a lot of link juice, then you get more link juice as a result. And so, taking advantage of directories like large vendors whose line you carry, getting yourself linked in a directory on their sites. The knot was really big, and in some cases still is. Other things that we typically suggest people to do are when you do charity events, make sure you get an article written in the newspaper as a result of it, or get an article, do a guest post, as Blake was saying, on the charity or on the organization's webpage, because organizations tend to be, if they're national, they tend to rank pretty highly. And so even though the content is a mismatch to jewelry, you're still getting a little bit of link juice just because it's coming from a larger site.
Yeah.
I love that term, link juice. So I guess it's all about writing this content. And I feel like I kind of know a little bit about content because I've written blogs for Punchmark, and I'm always trying to, when we do write, it's all about, hey, make sure you include the term jewelry website design or jewelry websites. So what are some effective, do's and don'ts when it comes to writing effective content, and what's the strategy behind that?
So one of the things I really push is, now that when people search, I feel like we've seen a shift into them asking questions, right? So this could be what I try to do is try to think like a customer and try to think, what are they going to be asking? So whether that's how often should I clean my jewelry, or how to do this, really just figuring out what they're trying to ask and then creating content that answers those questions. And I really think as well, people, when they think of content, they're thinking about, like you said, writing the content, writing blog posts, but content can be really anything. So that could even be a video, anything like that. So a survey, just any kind of content that you can put out there. And then when it comes to word counts and everything, I try to do at least 1,000-word blog post. Short form content doesn't get as much engagement, but anything that incorporates your keywords, that answers the customer's question, that's really specific to your niche, that usually creates engaging content that's easier to rank and get your rankings higher.
Yeah.
Right, that's perfect. You have so many people searching in Google for very specific things, and so if you think that way, what exactly are people looking for, and then put your keywords into the page that they answer those questions, then Google's going to say, hey, these people were looking for these exact things. It's some people also don't realize that when you click on a result in Google and you immediately click back to come back to the search engine result page, Google counts that and says, hey, they didn't get what they were looking for from this page. And so not just having keywords and all the other things that we talk about, all the buzzwords we talk about in SEO, but also it's so important to do what Blake said and answer the customer's question, because then you get few of those clicks back to Google. And so Google knows that you're quality and that you're a good destination for whatever keyword.
Yeah. And also, I was going to add one more thing. So I was reading this earlier. Talk about site structure, right? And so I see it with a lot of people, especially with websites. They'll have a blog, and then underneath that blog, they'll have a litany of different blog posts, right? And that could be anything from servicing to the 4 C's of diamonds, anything like that, right? And what we try to do is try to have your blog post up here, but also to have your site structured out to different categories. So if you're talking about bridal, have all those blog posts listed under the bridal section. If you're talking about servicing, have all those listed under servicing. Because if you just kind of have this hodgepodge of blog posts, Google's going to have a hard time understanding what that blog page is about. So it's good to have them separated into different headers.
So think about I always say, as a UX designer, just think about from who your prospective client is going to be, who your prospective customer is going to be. It's not someone that's a jeweler. It's not someone who's a website designer. What it is a customer who is probably, someone uneducated when it comes to jewelry, who's buying jewelry because it's whatever the reasons are, it's a gift. It's not, and they want to answer those questions in the least painful way possible. So think about hey, what should I get for my, spouse? And when they write that question, they want to know, okay, here are these things that you recommend, and then link below it. It doesn't do them any good to learn, something that is completely what the biggest Hope diamond was. It's no, how do I clean that piece of jewelry? What are some good maintenance items? So think about it from the shopper's perspective as opposed to someone in the jewelry industry. That's kind of what's going to make your site really get the next click through as well.
Absolutely. And you brought up a great point that I just wanted to touch on here as well. When you are writing blog posts and everything, we talk about backlinking a lot, but another important factor is interlinking. So if you have, like you said, top 5 gift ideas for mom this year, link to those products, lead them to other sites. We want them to spend as much time as possible on the site, right? So we might as well link to these different pages to show them the product that we're talking about rather than just showing them content and then not really leading them anywhere else. We always want to lead them to a different page.
That's a great point. Yeah, top 10 gift guide, top 5 gift guide, or throwing the holiday in there for the gift guide. Great ways to get people to bounce around inside your site, which is really what you want.
All right, guys. I think we'll be back in just 30 seconds with this quick advertisement from Sezzle. Shopping for jewelry can be expensive, and buying the perfect piece on a monthly budget can be a big ask. And that's why we're excited to introduce this episode's sponsor, Sezzle. Sezzle is an alternative payment option that allows shoppers to buy now and pay later by splitting their purchase into 4 interest-free installments. Merchants are paid upfront in full, and orders can ship right away. Adding Sezzle as a checkout option is proven to increase sales, conversions, basket sizes, and purchase frequency for merchants. Consumers love the flexibility and pay no interest or added fees. And they integrate seamlessly with Punchmark websites, which is pretty cool. If you'd like to join over 16,000 merchants taking advantage of the benefits Sezzle has to offer, and exclusively for In the Loop listeners, go to get.sezzle.com/loop. That's LOUPE. And enjoy your first month free as an exclusive In the Loop offer. Thanks, and back to the show. All right, so we're back. So how can we start taking the things that we just outlined in the first half of the show, and how can they take it going forward? So what are some ways that they can identify, all right, maybe our site needs a little bit better SEO or some more link juice? What do you guys think is like something that they can look at to see maybe we do need to improve?
Yeah, sure. So typically what I'll do is sit down with the customer or the client if I'm in front of them, or the prospect or somebody who's just interested in sitting down and seeing whether their site should rank, and just doing the searches in Google. One thing that's important to note is if you have searched your store before, open up an incognito window or a private browser window that you're not searching from your same browser. Google recognizes, just like with Geo Modifiers and all the other things that we talked about, Google starts to realize what search terms and what potential results you want to see personally. And so if you see your store ranking highly, it may not be because it's ranking highly for everyone. It may be because Google has identified your propensity to want to see that store. And so you want to open up a private window and just start searching for all the different terms that you can think of that people may be searching. So engagement rings near me, engagement rings 08215, wedding bands, watches, custom jewelry near me, any of these different things, best places to find diamonds, and see how you rank for each one of these things, and then start to look at how well you rank among your competition, and then compare that to your high revenue keywords, right? So if you're a big diamond dealer and you're not ranking highly for diamonds, that is definitely a place you want to put some work. And so, you can double down on just diamonds. It makes things easier when you do pick a small targeted focus. And so doing those searches is pretty key just for identifying, and then, starting to think about what the answers might be, and what, again, going back to what the customer may be thinking, and then designing the landing pages for that. But the second thing is looking at potential search volumes in your area. And so if a lot of people aren't searching for diamonds in your area, it may not be worth it. So there are certain things that you want to rank for, but there may also be things that aren't being searched heavily in your area. And so you want to think about it like that also. Like, what are people searching for the most?
How can you identify what people are searching for the most? Are there like any tools or something like that?
Sure. Yeah. Blake, you had said you had some tools.
Yeah. So when I start looking at tools for SEO and everything like that, one of the highest ones I recommend is Google Search Console. It's kind of like an all-in-one tool to understand the health of your website, how people are getting to your website, the search volumes, if there are any errors, the site speed, all these different details. Google Search Console is going to provide it to you. It's just like an all-in-one tool to really gain the health, and it's free. It's pretty awesome. So that's one of the ones that I use and I recommend the most. There's, if you're doing keyword research, Keyword Planner is a really good one. It's baked into Google AdWords, and it's usually used for page strategies, but I use it for SEO as well. It gives you search volume, the difficulty ranking, how much it would cost. It gives you all these different metrics to really see where you're going to rank at and how long it's going to take you to get there. Also, SEO Quake, and this is one of my favorites, and I've been using it for years. It's a simple plugin. Anybody can use it. You plug it right in to your Chrome browser or any browser you're using. And basically you go to a page, a landing page on your site, and you click the SEO Quake button, and it gives you a full diagnosis of the health of your entire site. So it's going to tell you the meta descriptions, the title tags, the XML sitemaps, the alt text. It's going to give you all these different factors so you can really get a good gauge of what you need to be fixing on your site.
Very nice. Those are great tools. And actually just getting into keyword volumes and the revenue potential. So if anyone were ever doubting the revenue potential of enhancing their SEO, one easy way to look at it is using some of the tools that Blake is talking about and trying to figure out what keyword volumes are. So keyword volume means how many people are searching for a particular keyword in your area. So like if we were to go back to Boston, Massachusetts, let's say, and we figured out that 4,000 people or 5,000 people a month were searching for the term engagement rings, right? We know that if we tap into some of that market, we're going to see dollars as a result of it. If people are searching for engagement rings, chances are they want to buy an engagement ring. And so you can actually look at it where you take the volume, and then there are published statistics that aren't necessarily accurate, but they're great guides that say things like the first search result in Google gets about 33% of clicks. The second search result gets about 11% or 7 to 11%, depending on what you look at. And then the third ranking gets 1 to 3% of clicks. And then believe it or not, the next two pages together share, or the rest of the first page and the entire second page share 1% among all of those rankings. And so getting yourself into the top 3 really makes a difference, right? So you're talking about a sizable, decent proportion of that 4,000 is going to come to you if you get yourself ranked up there. And then you can do things like work out the average shopping cart size on your website or the average shopping cart size of that particular product. So engagement ring typically trends highly, right? And then you look at, if you were to get 33% of that 4,000 people to your site, what's the conversion rate of a typical website? And so if you were to land 1 or 2 people out of every 100 that land on your site, which is a typical okay web conversion rate. I mean, you want to get it higher than that ultimately, but just as a start, now you're talking about real money because you're selling to a certain percentage, 1 or 2% of the enormous volume that you're now getting every month to your website out of that 4,000. And so you can start to see how it equates to dollars. And then once you get the traffic, there's a lot of optimization you can do as far as the shopping funnel and getting them from the landing pages and the blog pages that Blake and I are talking about into the actual buy funnel where they're looking at real products, they're inquiring about them, they're booking appointments based on them, or hopefully adding them to their cart or their wish list and ultimately purchasing them.
I love that joke. My favorite joke when it comes to SEO, always gets a laugh, is where's the best place to hide a dead body? Page 2 of Google. Yeah. And it's like, guys, when's the last time you've ever looked on page 2 of Google? For me, I was probably doing a research paper in college, and that was because I was trying to find like some peer-reviewed source or something like that. If your site's ranking on page 2, I got to be honest, you're not going to get found. It might as well not even be in that ranking. So just kind of identifying that sort of stuff. Again, putting your feet in the shoes of an uneducated shopper who's just trying to buy an engagement ring for that special time. Think about it. That person trying to go through as few hoops as possible to buy this ring. What is the fewest number of hoops? It's literally engagement rings near me, link number 1, click in, it's going to land you on some rings, find one that's in their budget and buy it as seamlessly as possible. If you guys find that little spot, that niche, then you guys are going to make the money. But if you make it hard and you start adding these extra hoops, you actually have to scroll down the page. Well, maybe not that time. Yeah. So just kind of, again, think about it from the shopper's experience. That's all I can add from a UX experience.
Yeah. Also, I would say don't get discouraged. If you are on the second page of Google, this is where Blake or people on the Punchmark advertising team really roll up their sleeves and say, okay, how are we going to get this to march up all the way from the second page up to one of the top 3 spots? And it's fun and it's rewarding. It does take time. You're trying to make Google change their mind about you and start to think that you should rank more highly. But it can definitely be done. We've done it many times. It is a little bit of an undertaking, but with a little bit of consistency, persistence, you will get it there.
Yeah.
What's that amount of time, would you say, Blake, for someone to go from, let's just say, middle page 2 to go to maybe not number 1, but like a respectable, healthy SEO ranking for what they're looking for? What would you, with like a real normal size budget, what would you say the amount of time that would be?
Right. Well, I can just tell you this, when I was freelancing and doing stuff like that with SEO, I would tell all my clients, like, don't expect anything in the first 3 months. Like, it's going to take some time. Yeah. And it's usually longer than that, right? That's when we can start to see some movement. But just to take all of these things that Brian and I have been talking about and putting them into practice, it takes a seriously long time. I just have a quick story. I was working for this other company and we had a client that was showing up on the second page of search results. They weren't really doing anything. So we created this whole SEO plan for them to get them on the first page. It took 11 months for us to get to we got to number 2, but it took 11 months for us to do that. And that was us writing new content, revamping all of their metadata, changing a lot of site structure. We had to do a lot of things. So how aggressive you are also plays a factor into it. But it does take a good bit of time to start seeing the success and reap the benefits of all the work that you're putting in.
11 months, man. But related to that, I think that there's also something that can kind of be used in conjunction with that, which we've actually talked about in the past, and we'll probably be talking about in the future on this podcast, is, buying ads, search result ads, which you guys can actually see those if you go to Google and you type in a very generic term. So even if you type in, jewelry websites, you'll probably see someone has bid on that term, and then they show up at the top, because Google, in the end, is a business and they're trying to make money. So they take that position, they reserve it for whoever paid the most money, and they get put at the top. But I think that it seems like it's kind of like a really good way to, in that 11 months while you're trying to rank higher, you can also purchase a couple of ads so that you're already at the top as you start to climb up naturally. I think that someone told me one time that ads at search ranking purchases are going to be kind of a sugar high. You can get there really quickly, but as soon as you shut it off and stop spending the money, you're going to go away. Mm-hmm. And then SEO has a great tail life. So it's going to take longer. But then once you stop paying for it or you stop doing SEO, you'll still continue to see the results of it.
Yeah.
Right. Like long-term and short-term investments. Mm-hmm. One gets you that quick sugar high, and the other one, you're working hard. I would even venture to say that site that Blake worked so hard for 11 months to get up to the top is probably still in the number 2 place, because if you have to work that hard to convince Google, chances are the next person has to work just as hard. And so, here it kind of like, if you can compare it to the profit potential of being in number 2, let's hope that they were in a business that if they did tap into that certain keyword volume every month, that they are long paid off for all the investment that they put into that 11 arduous months of hard work. Mm-hmm. They're going to reap the benefit of that for a really long time until somebody pulls out their wallet and is willing to have that staying power and that investment to sit there for however long they have to get back up into that second spot.
I checked yesterday in preparation for this, and they were still number 2. And
let's go.
I haven't worked there in 2 years.
That's great.
So it's pretty, and it's just really rewarding. Rather than, like you said, you were comparing it to a sugar high. It's just put in all that work and investment, and then it's long-term rewards too.
Yeah. So let's get this wrapped up really quickly. How can these people know maybe they already have SEO, or let's leave them with some actionable items that they can go do right after they finish listening to this pod, after they subscribe to our podcast? What should they be doing to find out if their strategy is working, or to check if their website is ranking high enough? What should they do?
Sure. So, again, I would say go back into Google and just start doing the searches and see where you rank. If you can take a look at where you were originally, I think the biggest thing is to lay down some benchmarks, lay down some ideas of how much traffic you have. And obviously Google Analytics is going to account for that. They're going to be able to measure. And so long term, year over year or whatever it is, look back and see if your traffic is growing, but then also look and see if you're ranking more highly for those keywords and with those modifiers and everything else. And if you are, then you're definitely on the right track.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say just setting those benchmarks at the very beginning, because you need something to compare yourself to, right? There's some tools where you can, like Moz especially, they offered some paid plans, which is another SEO tool that you can kind of go in and build keyword campaigns, and they can index your entire site that shows the strength of your rankings. But yeah, like Brian said, I completely agree. Just establishing benchmarks at the very beginning is just going to work out great.
And for retail stores, one thing that we started saying was because there's so much foot traffic that depends on search results, you may also want to, Google Analytics is great because you can look back at historical data, but you also probably want to use a door counter or just get an average count on a per month basis or seasonal basis or quarterly basis on how many people you typically get in the store, because you're going to get two benefits from all this work that you're doing. You're going to get the direct traffic benefits to your website, which hopefully result in either conversions or appointments or, that sort of web conversion type thing, or you're going to get people in the door. And depending on the store, depending on your location and the type of clientele you're going after, you may actually see more people in the store than you see additional hits to your website. And so, if you're in a tourist area, right, we have some people in Charleston. And so their whole focus is just capturing people that are in the area that they're not going to be there for long and they want to buy some jewelry while they're in town. They're, having a great vacation and they want to commemorate it with something that they can take home. And so it's not about going to the website and making an appointment or adding an item to their wish list. It's really about driving the traffic to the store. And so that's another really important benchmark that I think a lot of people overlook is just store traffic.
So guys, let's wrap this thing up. I think everybody for listening to this. And so just so you guys know, the next live show will be on October 22nd. And that's covering how to build an effective Google ad campaign. And that's with guests Katie Kinlaw from Punchmark and Cody Giles from the Smithy Group. And then that will air on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all the good places the following Thursday, which is October 29th. It should be. Special thanks to Sezzle and ClearSale for sponsoring this week's episode. You can find out more about ClearSale by going to offer.clear.sale/Loupe. And that's Loupe for more information about them. And from Sezzle to go to get.sezzle.com/Loupe. Again, Loupe. Enjoy your first month free as an exclusive In the Loop offer. And a big special thank you to Blake and Brian for joining me. It's really great talking to you guys. You guys obviously know exactly what's going on.
Thank you for having us. And thank you to everyone listening as well.
Yeah. I appreciate it. All right. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks, everybody, for listening to this episode of In the Loop. The next live show will be on October 22nd, and which will air on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and everywhere else on October 29th. And that's covering how to build an effective Google ad campaign. And that's featuring guests Katie Kinlaw from Punchmark and Cody Giles from the Smithy Group. A very special thank you to Sezzle and ClearSale for sponsoring this week's episode. You can find out more information about ClearSale by going to offer.clear.sale/Loupe. That's Loupe to find out more. And for Sezzle, you can go to get.sezzle.com/Loupe. Again, Loupe. And enjoy your first month free as an exclusive In the Loop offer. Thanks for supporting the show. It really helps us. Make sure if you like the show, you give it a like and a subscribe and let your friends know if you're really friends with anybody else in the jewelry industry. Really appreciate your time. See ya. Bye.